Chris Jericho recently signed a new contract with All Elite Wrestling, including expanding on his backstage role within the company. But does he have heat with CM Punk based on Punk's backstage heat within the company? We'll talk about that. Speaking of CM Punk, Ace Steel, his longtime former friend and trainer, recently got fired by AEW following the aftermath of All Out. But he has hit back on social media, hinting of false accusations. A world title match has been announced for this week's upcoming episode of Dynamite on TBS, and we've got an update on the contract and deals of Willow Nightingale and Arya Daivari. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling, and it's got to be talking about CM Punk again because that's still the biggest story in AEW right now. And could we have got a little bit of a peek into the backstage sentiment towards CM Punk? Now, it had been reported earlier on this week by Dave Meltzer via the Wrestling Observer newsletter. He spoke about this potential buyout between AEW and CM Punk, AEW buying out Punk's contract. There had been a hold-up over a possible non-compete clause, which is really holding up the situation. But it also had been reported that the backstage sentiment within All Elite Wrestling was largely anti-Punk. Now, in the aftermath of what happened at All Out, we have heard that big senior pros at AEW, such as Chris Jericho, Jon Moxley, and Bryan Danielson, have really helped unite the dressing room. And have we now seen what Jericho's opinion is on the former AEW World Champion via, you guessed it, social media and a liked tweet of all things. Now, many weeks after he dropped what some are calling the gripe bomb at the AEW All Out Media Scrum, CM Punk is still a hot topic among wrestlers and fans alike, and neither are hiding their feelings about the former AEW World Champion's actions, including legendary performer Chris Jericho. Now, Twitter user iBladeDaily, what a name that is, recently tweeted a thread about Punk's recent comeback to professional wrestling. He started by saying, quote, "Imagine you're CM Punk. You've had one of the most triumphant comebacks ever in the history of wrestling. You've been promoted as the star you never got to be in WWE, and within a year, you completely ostracize yourself, becoming so toxic that you're not worth having around." Now, shortly after the tweet was posted, the current Ocho himself, the reigning Ring of Honor World Champion Chris Jericho, liked it, though, it must be said, Jericho didn't follow up with additional comment, but certainly he liked the tweet. Now, while Punk's time in AEW appears to be coming to a close, if reports about his contract being bought out are true, Jericho is sticking around for the foreseeable future. Similar to the Blackpool Combat Club's Jon Moxley, the veteran recently signed a lucrative contract extension with the company that would keep him in AEW through early 2026. And not only will the Wizard continue to appear on screen as a competitor, but he's in line to also act as a producer and creative advisor to AEW President, Head of Creative and CEO Tony Khan and the AEW executive team, while continuing to mentor younger talent. With his wealth of knowledge and experience, he will surely be a valued asset for the promotion going forward for its existing stars and its up-and-coming stars, as long as he chooses to stay with AEW. Now, it must be said, when anyone ever likes any kind of tweet on social media, you have to take it with a pinch of salt. Yes, it can absolutely give an indication as to what anyone is thinking. Sometimes, especially back in the day, it used to be, if you want to know what anyone's thinking, and not even just like a wrestler or a sports star or anything like that, if you want to know what anyone's thinking, go to their liked tab on their Twitter profile, because it tends to be a bit of a window into the soul, or a window into the mindset of that person. However, there can be things that appear in your like list that you didn't even realize you liked. I've done it too. You're just scrolling through the timeline, you're using your thumb, and you happen to accidentally click something or whatever. It can happen. Jericho's in his 50s. I wouldn't say he's not the most technologically savvy person, because he is. But it must be said, you see that and you can absolutely believe it, can't you? Because, as has been reported by Meltzer earlier on this week, the sentiment backstage is largely anti-Punk at this point. And to be honest, I can't sit here and not blame the AEW locker room for feeling that way. You can't really. Whether you agree with what Punk said, or whether you disagree with how he handled it or anything like that, because I'm sure there are some people within AEW that when CM Punk was saying what he was saying during the All Out Media Scrum, I'm sure there were some people that were like, yeah, I totally agree. Punk's got his friends in AEW. We know that. It wasn't 100% completely anti-Punk. I think a lot of people coming out of All Out said he shouldn't have done it in that manner. Some of the gripes he had were valid, but he shouldn't have done it in that manner. And that's part of the problem. And maybe they've seen the reaction the positive reaction of the AEW locker room in recent weeks, and have said also, you know what, actually when it comes to Punk, maybe he's better off that he's not here. And to the point that Jericho has allegedly liked that tweet there will be some people within AEW saying, look, CM Punk, you had the red carpet rolled out towards you. There is no doubt in my mind CM Punk was the highest paid guy in the company. We don't know for a fact, but he was. He was the highest paid guy in the company, still is at this point. He did one job or two jobs, one to MJF, one to Jon Moxley. Even the Moxley one was an angle, and the MJF one, it wasn't a clean pin. You know, he defeated every person he faced off against. He won every feud. Yes, he brought a lot to the table, no doubt about it. Highest merchandise mover, selling out arenas based on rumors for his comeback. Several $1 million gates. There's no doubt about that, and there's no doubt about CM Punk's offer and what he does bring to the table. But at the same time, some people would look at him and say, look, you were treated actually pretty well, to be honest. And if you really got upset and frustrated about rumors about you, you should be comfortable within your own mind and comfortable within your own skin that you go, it's not true, it's bullshit, but guess what? I'm earning a lot of money, I'm the world champion, I'm the head of this company, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day, sticks and stones, no money out of my own pocket. And now he could find himself in a situation where there could be money out of his own pocket, because even if he gets a buyout of his contract, the buyout will be his sort of base guarantee. It'll be what he's guaranteed, what he's owed on paper. In terms of bonuses or things on top of such, like his merchandise stuff, or again, bonuses for $1 million gate pay-per-views or what have you, he's not going to get that. And realistically, it's by his own actions. It's by his own words. So I look at that Jericho tweet, and I think he's probably sharing the sentiment of a lot of people backstage in AEW right now. Now, speaking of Jericho, of course, I mentioned he recently signed that 3-year contract extension with AEW, and further clarifications have been given regarding some of the semantics of the Ocho and his future with AEW per the Wrestling Observer newsletter. And while the official press release stated that the contract extension would run through 2025, it seems as if it will actually run through early 2026 if a further extension is not given. This is actually because Jericho's existing contract doesn't actually expire until January of 2024. So he got given this contract extension way before his existing contract was up, meaning he actually has 4 years remaining altogether. Now, Jericho's new extension will not be in effect until January of 2023, when it will officially replace his old contract for the following 3 years. Now, the reigning Ring of Honor World Champion has reportedly been on a $3 million per year deal since his last 3-year extension in 2021. And he will be paid even more when his new extension comes into effect. The Observer calls the new contract the biggest of Jericho's 32-year career, which has spanned some of the biggest wrestling companies in history, including WWE, WCW, New Japan Pro Wrestling. And similarly, as I mentioned to Jon Moxley's new contract extension, Jericho will take on additional roles in upcoming years. Notably, he'll be a producer and a creative advisor. Unlike Moxley, however, Jericho's 3-year extension means that the Wizard will remain with the Tony Khan-led company until the age of 55. This is something that within WWE they're very aware of, as it makes the idea of Jericho returning to the company for one last run increasingly unlikely at that stage of his career. So Chris Jericho, if he wasn't already, but he was, when he signed with AEW in 2019, he was very open about the fact this was the biggest contract he had ever been on in his career. Now, as I mentioned, he then signed a contract extension in 2021, which by all accounts was, I think, similar terms or close to similar terms, maybe a little bit of improved, but it was similar terms, $3 million per year. By all accounts, we don't have the figures here, so I can't tell you how much it is. Not that it's really any of our business, it must be said, but I can't tell you how much it is. But it's more than he's ever earned in his career. And at this stage in his career, why not? Why not for Jericho? I would feel like he's earned it. You know, whether you like Chris Jericho or not, whether you are a fan of how he's booked or presented in AEW, there's one thing you can't question with him, and that's what he's done for this company. AEW would be in existence without Chris Jericho. I'm not going to say he was fundamental to the existence of the company, but I think he's been fundamental to the early success that the company's had. I don't think AEW, and it's difficult to say actually, but certainly Chris Jericho was a massive driving factor in Warner Media improving and extending their television contract with AEW in January of 2020. That was based on the back of Chris Jericho being AEW World Champion, Chris Jericho leading Dynamite every single week, Chris Jericho being in the highest rated segments on the shows, and Chris Jericho bringing name recognition to that company. So certainly AEW holds a huge amount of gratitude to Chris Jericho, and even to this day, Chris Jericho, again, people know who he is. He's a star in AEW, and in reality, when you look at that AEW roster right now, especially with the people that are on the shelf because of suspension, they don't have a ton of stars that could easily go to WWE and be just a bigger star there. They don't have many of them. Jericho's one of them. Moxley's there. Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, certainly Kenny Omega could be in WWE and do very, very well. But Kenny Omega's suspended. Punk, he's probably gone. MJF's another one there, but there aren't many. My point is there aren't a ton, and that's why Chris Jericho is just so important to AEW right now. So Jericho's getting that money, and good for him. Now, speaking of CM Punk, his longtime friend, former trainer, Ace Steel, of course, was fired this week from AEW because of the all-out brawl out. Now, as reported earlier this week, AEW released Ace Steel. Now, a few days after his release, Steel seemingly commented on his release and the backstage AEW drama with a photo of Randy Macho Man Savage confronting Hulk Hogan with the words "false accusations running wild" on his Instagram story. Now, Steel, along with Punk, the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega, were involved in a backstage altercation that took place on September 5th after CM Punk's post-AEW All-Out media scrum. According to reports about the altercation, Steel had bitten Omega and thrown a chair at the former AEW World Champion. Before his AEW release, Steel was working as a producer and was part of actually the build-up for Punk's match against Jon Moxley at All Out. He was Punk's trainer during the Moxley feud. As noted, AEW commentator Jim Ross actually spoke about Steel's release this week. The AEW announcer had considered him to be, quote, always friendly and approachable, and thought he did a good job with the company. Now, Steel's release was really the first big news since the altercation and since the suspensions of everyone involved, until Friday when there had been reports about AEW and CM Punk being in talks regarding a buyout of the remaining years of his AEW contract. Now, it was on last Tuesday's episode of Dynamite when the Elite and CM Punk were finally talked about on TV for the first time since the incident in question on September 5th. The Elite were mentioned during the AEW World Trios Championship match between the champions Death Triangle and Orange Cassidy, Chuck Taylor, and Trent Beretta, and CM Punk was mentioned or shown, certainly in a clip, that featured former Ring of Honor World Champions. This led to a lot of discussion about names returning to the company. It would appear that certainly AEW wants to bring back Omega and the Bucks. CM Punk, meanwhile, though, there is the negotiation about his buyout from the company. Now, the Ace Steel stuff. Ace Steel, obviously, there was the tweets that he posted a couple of weeks ago that not many people saw because his Instagram, his Twitter account rather, is private. But he posted a clip from the Blues Brothers, Aretha Franklin singing "Freedom, Freedom, Freedom," implying that he was on his way out of AEW, and then come to know, just a couple of days later, it was reported that he had been fired. What these false accusations are regarding, I mean, it has to involve what happened at All Out. What we really know about Ace Steel's participation in everything is that allegedly he had bitten Kenny Omega, and I say allegedly, but the bite marks on Omega's arm, so the evidence is pretty damning there. The other reports about him is that he had pulled Omega's hair, and the reason Ace Steel was really involved in that entire situation wasn't so much because he's good friends with CM Punk and he's his trainer or anything like that, more so because his wife allegedly was in the room at the time. I think she had a broken ankle or a broken leg. She was looking after CM Punk's dog Larry, and then when the altercation started happening, when the incident started happening, Ace Steel freaked out that his wife was there or his wife could get hurt or involved in that, so he went after Omega, but from Omega's side, he was removing the dog from the room or something like that. I mean, it's just we're still talking about hearsay, eyewitness stuff. We're never going to really truly know what exactly happened there. We're going to have to go with a consensus or somewhere in between of lots of different comments on what happened, but I don't know what really Ace Steel is denying. Is he denying that he bit Kenny Omega? Because as I mentioned, Omega's got the bruises. Is he denying that, someone attacked him? I don't know. Maybe one day Ace Steel will talk about it. Chances are I doubt that will probably happen nowadays. Maybe as part of his release to get a payoff. He might have signed an NDA. I don't know. That's just speculating on my part. But I don't know if Ace Steel will ever talk about it. But if he does, we'll talk about it here on the channel, certainly. Dynamite is back on Wednesday next week in its regular time slot on TBS, and AEW CEO Tony Khan has announced a new title match on Twitter for next week's episode. Khan announced that AEW World Champion Jon Moxley is set to defend his AEW World Championship against AEW World Trios Champion Penta El Zero Miedo this coming Wednesday. In a promo that was released on AEW's official Twitter account, Moxley spoke about how he isn't satisfied and wants to pick right up where he left off. Penta and Alex Abrahantes appeared on screen and accepted his challenge after Moxley said he wants to face someone with zero fear. Zero miedo. See what they did there? Now, Moxley has been the AEW World Champion since his victory over Bryan Danielson at AEW Dynamite Grand Slam in September. His last title defense came this past week on Dynamite against Hangman Adam Page. Of course, the match ended up being stopped due to Page landing awkwardly on his head after taking a lariat from Moxley. Page was later taken to a Cincinnati hospital and diagnosed with a concussion. He has since been discharged, though. This Wednesday's episode of Dynamite is set to take place at the Chartway Arena in Norfolk, Virginia. Other matches set for the show include a number one contenders match for the Tag Team Championship between FTR and Swerve in Our Glory. Also, Ring of Honor World Champion Chris Jericho and Daniel Garcia will face the Blackpool Combat Club's Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta, while former AEW Women's World Champion Riho will face Jamie Hayter. It must be said, look, obviously, Moxley versus Penta, that match should be great, and it should be a lot of fun. Great match. No problem with that. No problem with Penta versus Mox. Why is it a world title match? Why? I know they might do open challenge, this kind of thing, but you know the outcome. Jon Moxley is not going to lose the AEW World Championship to Penta. The only way that they can start to make those kind of random world title matches mean something is if occasionally an upset happens, but it never should because it's pro wrestling. So I don't know. It feels like a crutch from Tony Khan, to be honest, and you've noticed this for a really long time. This isn't any new news that I'm bringing to you here, but he's obviously seen in the early days of Dynamite that put a title match on the show, put a world title match in the main event, it'll draw a number. It'll do well in the ratings. And I think he's probably thinking, look, we were on Tuesday last week. Yes, we beat NXT, but we lost a lot of viewers for a variety of reasons, sport, day change, competition from NXT. We want to go back to 1 million, so I'll put a world title match on next week and we'll get over 1 million viewers. But for me, it waters down the concept of a world championship match if you're having them every week. I mean, we're literally 2 weeks in a row, 2 title matches. And if it's a case of he feels like the fans might have been hard done by or shortchanged, I didn't feel that watching Dynamite. If anything, again, I thought they ended the show very well considering the circumstances. I didn't. I don't see the point. Just have Moxley versus Penta. We know Moxley's going to win. It is what it is. You know, the match will be fine anyway. It's not needed. It really isn't needed, in my opinion. Finally, Rampage on Friday saw the announcement of Willow Nightingale as All Elite, and we've got an update on her contract as well as another one. Now, Willow Nightingale, of course, is All Elite. AEW revealed officially that Willow had signed a full-time deal with the company on the episode of Rampage on Friday. Now, according to Sean Rossap of Fightful, he has learned that recently Willow had signed with the company in some capacity, but hadn't confirmed if it was tiered or full-time, but had it confirmed when she'd gained merch on AEW Shop. When Willow finished up with MLW, they were under the impression it was to sign a full-time deal with another company. Fightful had also been told that as of this summer, indie promotions didn't seem to have a clear indication or have to clear her bookings with AEW directly. Regardless, the reaction internally to Willow signing was very positive, as can be seen on commentary and with the crowd reaction. Jim Ross said well deserved when the announcement was made on Rampage. Now, Willow's signing also led to Sean Rossap asking about the status of numerous other talent in the company. They also had it confirmed that there are several talent on full-time deals that haven't received the All Elite graphic, which is seemingly customary. Rhea Daivari is one that they had heard of this summer that had been brought in full-time that has yet to be announced by AEW in the All Elite manner. I don't know if everyone needs to be, though. I mean, I know that's kind of customary and par for the course, but I don't know if realistically every single wrestler needs to have that announcement. No disrespect to Rhea Daivari, but if they do Daivari as All Elite, people will shrug. And it will, if anything, I'm not sure, it'll just get mocked. You need to build the talent up to do it first, in my opinion. But look, congratulations to Willow and to Daivari getting those full-time deals, and it'll be interesting to see what they do in AEW going forward. But there you go, guys. That's the latest AEW news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's AEW news stories in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on the Jericho CM Punk heat? What are your thoughts on Ace Steel saying that allegations or false allegations are running wild? What are your thoughts on AEW announcing another world title match for Dynamite on Wednesday? And what are your thoughts on Willow Nightingale and Aria Daivari? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.